There is no red, white, or blue in this country. The only color that matters is green, because we live in the United Corporations of America.
Hey, this is Ashley Bishop with Status Coup, and this is the live stream with the amazing Zana Day. Zana and I were talking for a while before the live stream, and we both have a lot to say tonight, especially about the genocide in Gaza and the way the Democrats seem to have suddenly realized that this is going on after like 22 months, almost 2 years of a genocide. We also want to get to Alyssa Slotkin sucking on breaking points, and then also on Colbert. But before we get to that, Josh Hawley introduced a bill to prevent members of Congress from stock trading, and apparently his colleagues really did not like that, and it's very weird to find yourself on the side of someone like Josh Hawley, but here we are. So we are going to get right to it. So Colin, if we could play the video in the first tweet that we have queued up.
Are the Trump clip?
I think.
Yeah, we can go to the tweet first, because she kind of breaks down. She posted several videos, so instead of pulling all like 7 videos, she just gives like a rundown. Anna Matson gives a rundown of how each person sort of reacted. So instead of like us having to sit and watch every clip, she has kind of laid it out for us on some of the crazy things that these people have said.
That works. Okay, so
here we have Josh Hawley, who according to Anna Matson, Josh Hawley doesn't actually own stock himself, but he explains kind of the premise of his bill, which is to kind of combat insider trading and prevent members of Congress from trading stock. He says 86% of Americans say members of Congress should not be able to buy and sell shares of stock. So it's overwhelmingly popular, as we already know. And he said, we've seen the former Speaker of the House make millions of dollars off profits, which is true. And we'll get into Nancy Pelosi's response to this in just a couple minutes. We've seen members of both parties, I'm sad to say, be investigated for their stock trades. And the reason for all this, that is, quite frankly, members of this body are privy to information that normal people just are not.
Yeah. Again, there's nothing within what Josh Hawley has said that I can disagree with as far as this goes. I mean, it's pretty common sense, and obviously the people who are benefiting from this are also in charge of whether or not we can pass a bill banning them from doing it. So I don't know. We've tried this before. I do not expect that we will see this go through. It would be lovely, but again, I cannot imagine a reality in which it actually happens, because again, the people who are benefiting are the ones in charge of voting against their interests, whatever they think their best interests are, as people, which I would argue are not things that I would be interested in, but you know, they are doing them.
True.
But yeah.
And, Rand Paul and Thomas Massie have put forward similar bills. And it was interesting because one of those bills was a bipartisan bill that a lot of the squad members supported. So there's been a few on the Hill who have been pushing this, mostly, oddly enough. It's odd to see a libertarian support that, but yeah. But the meltdown was pretty bipartisan on this issue. Apparently, Rick Scott from Florida
be united in something.
Yeah. And Rick Scott from Florida, who was in trouble, has been in trouble before and lost a massive lawsuit regarding fraud and Medicare. So when they say that individuals are committing fraud, no. His insurance company conglomerate and NGOs he was working for were the ones that were committing the fraud. He says, Senator Hawley, you're concerned about the liquid asset provisions. It's the same ones you voted for last year. He's not wrong about that. Hawley did vote for protections for corporations.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, I watched some of these clips and some of the, again, just like meltdowns from these people are like comical. Okay, this is the one that I found most interesting. Talking about, nobody will be incentivized to run for Congress. No one will be incentivized to give up their business to be part of Congress if they can't engage in insider stock trading, apparently.
Right.
We will find no politicians then. If they can't benefit from this in really egregious ways that your average person could never possibly do, nobody will run. I mean, it's just
If they can't get rich and do self dealings, why would anyone run from Congress? They're really telling on themselves.
yes. Yeah, yeah, and I mean, your average person. I think most of us don't actually want to be engaged in anything quite so. I don't know if evil is the right word. I mean, it is, but I'm sure there's something more illustrative than evil. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's profiting off of a position in power and profiting off of, information that should be used to protect and serve the people. That's obviously not what's happening. They're just siphoning money up and away from us in all various ways. And here's just another, again, egregious example of that.
And another thing that's very, very telling about what Senator Johnson has to say here is this concept that everyone who runs for Congress or members of Congress will be business owners. They'll be part of the owning class. They'll be part of the ones who are the bosses and the business owners and the millionaires and the centimillionaires. Yeah.
No, that is a really good point. That's a really good point that I kind of missed in his saying that. Like, yes, they are just admitting that they know their class. They know that they have class consciousness.
Yeah.
But they for sure do. And if you're paying close enough attention, it will become apparent.
And we can maybe read one more tweet, and then we can show you Trump's response to this, which is really interesting.
It was good, and Pelosi's response to Trump's response was
yes.
Even better.
So Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, my home state, if this is a great bill, if this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's really necessary, it should apply to Donald Trump. But interesting enough, there are provisions in this bill that do apply to the executive branch as well. But the fact that they don't want to apply it to Donald Trump means that it's a really crummy bill. I will oppose the substitute change because it should apply to everybody or nobody. So that's interesting. He's not saying he would oppose the bill. Like I said, Rand Paul is one of the few that has actually brought a bill similar to this to the floor before. So that's interesting. But he's saying it needs to apply across the board. So I don't really know if this is just his excuse to weasel out of the bill or if it's, but Rand Paul, as far as insider tradings and dealings like that, he's one of the ones that doesn't his pockets don't run as deep. There's a lot I disagree with him on, but I'm just being factual.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with that. Every so often, let's say, there is something that he says that's like, okay, like I can't find anything to disagree with. And like you said, I don't know if this is a way for him to just, get out of having to deal with this bill and say, like, I'm not going to vote for it because it's not good enough. If it doesn't apply to Trump, it doesn't apply, it's not good enough to apply to anyone. Who knows? It's so hard to tell with these people and infer any kind of real intention. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was more just, I am not going to vote for this because I know that it's going to hurt me politically. And here's my excuse that sounds principled and sounds in line with my ideals or, my supposed ideals.
And I watched quite a bit of this session, and one of the things that stuck out to me is Yeah, we kept hearing a theme of, well, this will start next term, and there were many people that were making the argument people aren't going to want to run. People aren't going to want to run. And that kept being a theme that they kept coming back to. But we can listen here to what Donald Trump has to say about this. If we could pull that clip up, Colin.
Of Congress from owning or trading individual stocks, it extends to the president and vice president. Are you in favor of that legislation?
Well, I like it conceptually. I don't know about it, but I like it conceptually. And, Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it. And what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated, because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And she ought to be investigated.
I mean, I like, he likes it conceptually, and then immediately pivots to attacking a very hateable Democrat, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, of course, it should absolutely apply to her. She is the actual poster child for insider stock trading in Congress. There's a Twitter account about her insider trading, but it's obviously really hard to take what the king of grifters says seriously. And, I'm on Holly's side in all of this.
Me too. She has more than $244 million in assets alone, in shareholder assets. But the thing that I think is so ironic about what Trump said at the same time is he was literally price setting the stock market with his tariffs. He was like, now is the time to buy. Remember that? I mean, the irony is that he does the exact same thing and has been known for self-dealing, and that it's not just members of Congress. It's a symbiotic system with their donors. So it's a symbiotic system where people like Donald Trump, billionaire donors that used to be donors to these politicians or are donors to these politicians, also do self-dealings. And so it's a relationship that goes both ways. It's not only the members of Congress themselves that this is advantageous for, but it's also the big corporations and the private equity firms and all these other organizations and individuals that donate millions of dollars to these candidates' campaigns.
Yeah, an ecosystem of parasites. Just
Great way to put it. Ecosystem of parasites. Speaking of ecosystems of parasites, we can now take a listen to what Nancy Pelosi has to say about this.
Perfect segue.
This afternoon, President Trump mentioned you, and he made an allegation about your investments. I want to roll that clip and then give you a chance to respond.
Yeah.
Seem to be having some sort of
investments.
let me just read what he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
But I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider. But the president has his own exposure, so he's always projecting. He's always projecting. And let's not give him any more time on that, please. We're going forward here, and I'm very proud of my family. And while he might make fun of us while somebody inspired by him, breaks into our home and hits my husband in a deadly fashion, hits my husband over the head, and he thinks that's a riot. I'd rather not go into some of my other complaints about him right now, rather to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid and Medicare. What a triumph, a great pillar of economic and health security for the American people. We had over the weekend a Caring Across Generations initiative of a 60-hour vigil of all of us taking turns, myself and my daughter.
The beginning of that clip is perfect. Why do you want to read that? She asks the person posing as a journalist that she is talking to. And, I love that she made sure to say that, like, if anybody in Congress is stock trading, they've done nothing wrong. They've done nothing wrong. Had to quickly preface that and make sure that everybody knows that they're doing nothing wrong. And yeah, she just wants to talk about the triumph of Medicare and Medicaid while it is being wholly dismantled under her watch.
Absolutely. And, there was a report that came out in May stating that Nancy Pelosi's assets went up $6 million in May alone. 1 month asset spike.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
When the median income in some places like Appalachia is around 30,000 and the national media income is at 60K roughly. Yeah. This woman in Congress is hauling in $6 million in a month.
Insane.
261.37 million is the latest report on how much her portfolio is worth.
And I'm sure she's earned every penny of that.
Oh yeah,
of course she has. She's entrepreneurial. She's a capitalist. She's earned her money. She's done her job. Her husband is he's very good. He's very entrepreneurial. He knows what he's talking about. He guesses correctly every time. It's insane. It's insane, and it's just like the amount of money that as you were alluding to, the amount of money that she made in a single month would wholly alter everybody that is watching this live stream right now. The folks doing the live stream right now, if we got that amount of money over, I don't know, a few decades, it would irrevocably change your life. So, I mean, the idea...
Pre-Glass-Steagall, pre-Glass-Steagall, which was passed under the Clinton administration, and pre-Reagan era legislation, which was passed by members of Congress at the time in the 80s, in the late 80s. Before that, under the New Deal, in order for companies to get tax breaks, in order for them to have incentives, in order for them to have government contracts and subsidies and the kinds of things that, we do today, the majority of their stocks had to be owned by the workers. So the workers had to own at least 51%. They had to offer benefits. They had to offer worker protections. All of that was erased in the late 80s and early 1990s. And what this really boils down to is hoarding of wealth. It's hoarding of wealth. It's the mass wealth inequalities and redistribution, and these members of Congress are taking advantage of that. They are hoarding stocks from workers, from the people that are producing whatever it is that they're profiting off of. They're holding it from the workers. So Nancy Pelosi's $261 million in assets are wealth that wasn't made by her or her husband, but by the workers in those companies or corporations that those companies and corporations wouldn't exist without the workers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that is the only way that anyone can amass this kind of wealth. At some point in from point A of this money arriving to someone at point B, they have been exploiting workers. It is the only way to do that. And whether it's directly or indirectly, it doesn't matter.
But for her, it's great. It's great. We should be allowed to do it. It's wonderful. Anyone should be able to invest in stocks, even though most American families don't even have $500 in savings for an emergency. So.
Well, they should invest their savings into a single 0.1% of a stock in something that might actually give them some kind of returns.
Yeah, call Pelosi, see if she knows a guy.
Seriously. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. The level of just like in your face corruption is horrible. Okay, so moving on from there, we have an update on the Epstein case. So why don't we go to the first tweet on that?
Which one was that? Say
The first tweet on Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
the video you said.
It's the tweet from JKB Journalist.
Oh, I see. Apologies.
You are good. Okay, so this is a tweet from Julie K. Brown. As I've said for weeks, the prison camera video released by the DOJ did not show Epstein's cell or even the stairway to his wing. Great graphic by CBS News, worth watching. Okay, and there is also a video on this, so we can probably go to watching the video too, because that is the more important part.
This was the nearly 11-hour video agents reviewed when they investigated the death of convicted child predator Jeffrey Epstein. Government officials say it's proof that no one entered his cell tier. Malfunctioning equipment meant only one camera recorded the general area, and that camera captured part of the common area, including the officer's station and a sliver of the staircase leading to Epstein's cell. Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino.
There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
CBS News has reviewed the tape, and this is what it shows. The primary entrance is here. The pathway from the entrance to the stairs is completely out of view of the camera, leaving ample room for someone to enter unseen. This is the last time Epstein is believed to have been seen on camera, but we don't see him walking up the stairs to his cell. Bongino also said none of this video was doctored. It was the original, raw footage from the camera.
We're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans.
But a review by multiple video forensic experts found several indications this may not be raw footage. For example, at 11:21 p.m., a cursor appears briefly, indicating the video may have actually been a recording of a computer screen. Experts told CBS News the video's metadata, which tracks how a file is created and changed, shows it's made from 2 clips edited together. Then, at 11:58 p.m., the video suddenly jumps to midnight, and the aspect ratio shifts.
Okay. I mean, that all probably means nothing, right? I'm sure it's fine. The clip wasn't doctored. It's totally normal for a computer mouse to just like appear over footage that has been filmed of a real life thing.
Yeah, you're getting into what Pam Bondi responded. That's essentially what she said. And the video goes on. We cut it there just because it's pretty long. The video is longer. But Pam Bondi also claimed that there's a minute missing from the video, but that's just standard practice. However, a whistleblower did tell CBS News that the DOJ absolutely has a copy of the video with no interruption. So the question is, did Pam Bondi lie? And if she's lying, why?
I guess I would also wonder, what about cutting a minute from the footage is standard practice unless there's something that I'm missing?
She's saying that it's an older video, so every it's same video that they've had since the 90s, which is strange, and that every time that they reset, it loses a minute. But this whistleblower is apparently saying there is no minute missing, that's just absolutely not true.
I guess I'm going to side with the whistleblowers on this one. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous assertion. That isn't a thing that happens. If footage degrades, it just degrades, and it won't degrade uniformly like that in just like a whole minute long like chunk or chunks. I mean, that's very silly. That's very silly. And, per CBS, you wouldn't be able to see his cell anyway. So I mean, clearly they are lying. Who could have thought? Who could have guessed that they were lying? That they're covering something up? A bunch of billionaires and their lackeys are all conspiring together to hide things from the public, disgusting things that they're doing. I mean,
and one of the things that stuck out to me with the fact that you can't see the cell is it goes even beyond the minute that is missing. But this initial video was released to say we didn't see anybody coming in or out until people notice the discrepancies in the video. So the fact that the video doesn't even actually show the cell, and that there is a possibility that somebody could have come in and come out and it wouldn't have been even recorded, then that opens up a whole other window of what happened. Because at that point, then whether or not there's a minute missing or any of that other information becomes a little bit more moot, because the fact is that somebody could come, according to the CNN report, somebody could have come in, went along the side if they understood the angles, the angular patterns of the video, avoided the video or avoided the camera recording them, and gone to the room anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that we will be hearing plenty more on this over, the next few days or however long this all continues.
And we were misled to think that that door that we're seeing is his cell, but it's not.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, nothing that we are being told, being shown is accurate, truthful. And again, it's just like, I don't know. As far as this case goes, I'm kind of, I mean, it's obviously incredibly important. The president of the United States is implicated here as far as the Epstein case goes, and it's incredibly important for me personally. I feel like it's also, there's so much going on in the world, and a bunch of rich people doing terrible things is not all that surprising, and that there is this
potentially using it for espionage or blackmail or whatever other implications have been suggested, which right now are still in the realm of conspiracy theory. So I'm not claiming that that is happening. However, there are questions around why so many celebrities, why so many politicians are implicated in this and were hanging out with this guy and sought out by Epstein intentionally. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. My take would be that power corrupts, absolutely. And the kind of people who seek out that kind of power, that kind of influence, that kind of fame, there is something, it's not something I would be interested in. I will say that.
Creepy.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's sad. I think about the survivors often and what this must be like for them to have this, be such a national story and to have no real resolution.
Absolutely. Yeah. And have it all play out on the national stage, and to, to know that so many people are so invested in this one way or another, and it's being used, for political aims must be very traumatizing.
Oh, yeah. And, there was a recent article that came out in CNN that also shows that polling in Reuters and Quinnipiac, two recent Reuters and Quinnipiac polls, are showing that Americans overall disapprove of how the Trump team has handled this by huge margins. 54% in the Reuters poll disapprove, only 17% approve, and an even larger divide in Quinnipiac, showing 63% disapprove of Trump's handling of the Trump administration handling of the Epstein case. So, and about the same amount approved. And it's also showing splits among the MAGA base. The MAGA base is moving away from, and many conservatives are moving away from Trump on this issue. among others, which, we're about to get into Gaza and the Democrats and how they're responding. But this is another thing that shows, we just mentioned in the last story, 83% of people want Congress to stop insider trading. Here with Epstein, 50 to 60% or greater disapprove of the current administration and the last administration even. The polls in the last administration were pretty high disapproval of how Democrats were handling the Epstein situation. So what we're seeing over and over again, and we're going to see in the next segments that we talk about, is that our representation, as we say in the United Corporations of America, are not representing the people. They're not in line with what the people want over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And if the Epstein case is, the straw that breaks the camel's back, as far as, the let's say, Republican conservative coalition and how MAGA interacts with that, I mean, that would be, I suppose, a net good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We also have an article here from Politico that shows that not only are conservatives and Republicans and MAGA turning against Trump on Epstein, but they're also diverging on Israel as well. If we could pull that up. Are you with us, Colin?
Cost of living, and I
Oh,
think that ignores.
I think
the Politico article that Jordan sent about MAGA base shifting drastically.
Number 4. There.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
That one. Yeah. MAGA is turning on Israel over Gaza, but Trump is unmoved. Prominent MAGA influencers have stepped up their criticism of Israel. Okay, so if we could scroll down just a little bit. I'm not going to read too much of this, but so President Donald Trump and Republicans on Capitol Hill are keeping their criticism of Israel for its conduct in the Gaza Strip measured, as it says in Politico, even as they faced loud pressure from the MAGA base to rethink their support for Israel amid the worsening humanitarian crisis in the enclave. The cautious approach from the White House and senior Republicans reflects the ascendance of a loud wing of the president's base that has sharply criticized Israel. Those figures are clashing with more traditional Republicans who view the bilateral relationship with Israel as sacrosanct and often refrain from criticizing the Middle East ally. But the balancing act is occurring as the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip reaches its nadir after 2 years of war between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. 60,000 people have died in Gaza, and that is just the official count, which we know to be a vast undercount of the amount of people who have actually died during this conflict. So, they're saying 60,000 people have died in Gaza since the war broke out in October 2023, as aid groups have warned the territory is experiencing a famine and thousands of children may die of starvation in the coming weeks. So that is as much of that as I wanted to read, unless there was something else within that you wanted to get to, Zaina.
No, I think that about covers it.
Yeah. And I mean, as you said, as we were getting into this, I mean, this represents another significant portion of the MAGA base that is, we can at the very least say, frustrated with Trump. Yeah. Now, what that means, who is to say, right? But at the very least, he is losing support on some key issues here. And I don't know. I mean, it could represent something significant. There's certainly been public pressure for everyone, Democrats, Republicans, Trump, to change their positions on Israel and Palestine. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be too hopeful. After, nearly 22 years of this, I would hesitate to say anything that, this means definitively that something's going to happen, because we know that just because the public wants something doesn't mean that anyone in power is going to give them that thing. And if that were the case, we might not be here to begin with anyway. So who knows? But it's not insignificant that this is happening. And I think that one, that there are two of these sort of fissures occurring at the same time is, again, significant. And it is significant the things that they are fissuring on. The Epstein case is something that, the MAGA base has been kind of trained to be invested in. They've talked about it a lot. Trump obviously said he was going to release the files. So, it's something that they're very invested in. And Gaza is different, though. Gaza is different. It's not, it's more of a left issue. And when I say left, I mean actual left, like leftist left issue. And it is, that not just Democrats, but also the MAGA base are now, they are turning on Trump because of it.
And we have a poll that'll be coming up a little bit later when we're digging into the Democratic Party's response to what's happening in Gaza. That'll also show that the majority of the Democratic base, but then a significant portion of the conservative base have moved on this issue. The majority of the American public are now wanting to withdraw support for Israel.
Yeah, which is, again, that very significant. And like you said, we have two polls that relate to this that will be coming up. So we can move on from Trump and what it means for MAGA, I think, as far as Gaza goes, because we have a lot of other Gaza coverage that we wanted to get to. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about, and we will spend probably the rest of the live stream talking about, is Democrats as far as Gaza and their cowardice on the genocide in Gaza. So we can go to the first article.
And stick with us, because they have shifted overnight on their stances, but it's still milquetoast. You guys are going to want to see what is going on, because it has been a somewhat drastic change, but then still not enough. It's very interesting where they're moving on this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first article that we have is from AP News. Okay, so Democrats implore Trump to step up in role addressing suffering and starvation in Gaza. And okay, Senate Democrats are imploring President Donald Trump's administration to step up its role in addressing suffering and starvation in Gaza, with more than 40 senators signing on to a letter Tuesday urging the resumption of ceasefire talks and sharply criticizing an Israeli-backed American organization that had been created to distribute food aid. They are referencing the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation there, GHF. In a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Republican president's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, the senators said the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, created in February with backing from the Trump administration, has failed to address the deepening humanitarian crisis and contributed to an unacceptable and mounting civilian death toll around the organization's sites. It marked a mostly united plea from Senate Democrats, who are locked out of power in Washington. The most powerful people on the face of the planet are locked out of power in Washington, according to this AP News article, for the Trump administration to recalibrate its approach after the collapse of ceasefire talks last week. Trump on Monday broke with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying he wanted him to make sure they get the food in Gaza, and referencing the images of hungry children. So I'm going to stop there. I mean, the thing that I got stuck on reading this article for the first time was just the little, hyphenated section where they say, Democrats are locked out of power right now in this moment. The most powerful people in the world, U.S. senators, are locked out of power. They can't do anything but write a letter. So, 40 senators signed on to a letter. They're asking for aid, and essentially pushing Trump to do something on the crisis, and criticizing the GHF centers, which, as we know from reporting, people have died trying to reach them. So far, I think the count is over 700 people. 700 people have died trying to reach those centers, and 1,000 people have died just trying to reach aid centers in general. And when we say, have died trying to reach them, we don't mean like by accident people trip and fall into a hole. People have been shot by IDF, as well as the private U.S. contractors that guard GHF. So there's a couple of private contractors that we know of that guard that center, that have been, throwing stun grenades into crowds, pepper spraying people, and shooting them. So, this is when Democrats are deciding to write a strongly worded letter. And maybe you remember this better than I do, Zaina, but Chuck Schumer wrote another strongly worded letter on something equally as ridiculous, I want to say about a month ago. And I wish I could remember the details, but I say that only to say this is their favorite thing to do, right? A strongly worded letter, get 40 people to sign on to it so that they can say that
they can virtue signal. It's virtue signaling for the next election cycle.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because we don't expect anything material really to come from this. I mean, and again, it's like you're writing a letter. You're writing a letter when 2 million people are facing down a famine right now, dying of starvation, and you're writing a letter as if that's enough. I don't know. It's just pathetic. It's pathetic.
They're not going to hold. They're not talking about sanctioning these U.S. companies such as UG Solutions that are causing the problem. They're not talking about bringing the guy that's in charge of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that Trump set up, that this evangelical dude who Trump put in charge of the Middle Eastern Foreign Affairs wing, who is a Christian Zionist, pro-Israel. They're not going to hold that guy accountable, even though a whistleblower came forward on NPR just yesterday, saying what he has witnessed on the ground, intentionally targeting people. These private contractor companies that are U.S. staffed with former military from the United States are the ones that are handling this situation in the Middle East. So now we basically have former troops on the ground that are firing at individuals. So it's gone beyond, yes, we're supporting Israel. We now have essentially, black ops contractors on the ground that are, instead of having an NGO or a nonprofit handle this, they're having black ops contractors that have no experience distribute aid.
No. Yeah, it's crazy. So it's private Safe Reach Solutions is the other private contractor. Safe Reach Solutions and UG Solutions. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. And we have essentially what is representative of U.S. boots on the ground there. It might not be our formally our military, but it's U.S. private contractors. So, I mean, good enough. And they are killing Palestinians, right? Like they're killing people who are desperate and starving and just trying to get like a sack of flour to bring back for their family. And they are killing them alongside.
At least if it was our military, and I'm not advocating for that, but if it was our military, there would be some mechanisms of accountability. But these black ops, private contractors, that mechanism is not in place.
That is a great point. And further to that, the Trump administration authorized $30 million as a grant to GHF at the end of June. We have already dispersed 7 million of that. So I mean, it's as you're saying, it's not just that like we are supporting them. All of this is being done with the direct backing of the U.S. The direct backing of the U.S. And I guess I would also say, as to zoom out a little bit from this conversation, we're talking about all of the direct U.S. influence in this now. For anyone who doesn't think that Gaza is a U.S. domestic issue, you are just demonstrating your lack of political savvy. I don't know. There's no separation between this. This is probably, in my opinion, this is the biggest domestic issue in the U.S. right now, and it had a huge impact on the last election and is going to continue to impact elections. Who knows where we'll be at during the next election cycle? I could not possibly think that far ahead. New York City has a mayoral general election coming up in November. It has already had a huge impact. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but again, just for people who want to relinquish any kind of responsibility for having a take on this, or for politicians who don't want to have to move on this in any way, don't want to have to publicly address it, one of whom we are going to get to soon. There's no excuse. This is a domestic issue. It's not foreign policy anymore, and it never was. It never was. I mean, the idea.
We were the ones providing money for both the Iron Dome, which isn't always used for defensive capabilities, but also the Iron Dome itself allows Israel to be a bully. Secondly, we were the ones that provided the ammunition. The United States provided the ammunition. We provided the bombs. We provided the shielding in the United Nations, where we vetoed any kind of sanctions or accountability the United Nations was trying to hold Israel to when it comes to international law.
Yeah. This has always been a U.S. Political problem, and it's only going to remain so. And we're going to get into this more as we go on, but it's been 22 months of this. 22 months. And again, the official count of people who have died, 60,000, vast undercount of the amount of people who have actually died, 100. And as of yesterday, so this number may have gone up by now, but as of yesterday, 147 people have died of starvation since the conflict began. Most of those deaths have occurred over the last month or so. And I want to say 87 of those deaths are children.
That's accurate, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is only going to continue to be a problem, and the Democrats are behaving as though they just learned about this yesterday. We just learned about it, and we're going to write a strongly worded letter about it. And again, continuing to say that they have no power, when if a U.S. senator has no power, I don't know who does. And I understand, we are at the mercy of a hostile Republican administration, a very hostile Republican administration, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't. They are still
problem. Gaza is a bipartisan. It's the result of a bipartisan legislation that was overwhelmingly passed by both parties, with both parties giving Bibi Netanyahu a standing ovation, Benjamin Netanyahu a standing ovation, even after the ICC had issued arrest warrants for war crimes.
Yeah.
At our Congress, at our Capitol.
Yeah. Yeah. So we will continue talking about Democrats trying to pretend like they have nothing to do with this. So not yesterday, the day before yesterday, Alyssa Slotkin went on Breaking Points to who knows why, right? Like we're going to start this clip, and I'm just going to preface it a little bit because I think it's interesting, with Crystal Ball asking Alyssa Slotkin, well, why did you want to come on here? Why?
Oh, and before we started, Crystal Ball held her feet to the fire like I have not seen. I mean, we would do that too, guys. We would hold their feet to the fire if they would come here on Status Coup. But it was refreshing to see a journalist do journalism for once. Was it not, Ashley?
No, it was. And I mean, this is how Crystal won me over. I've been watching them for a while, since they were over at the Hill. I watched a few of their early, let's say episodes, and I was like, okay, I'm into this. I like this. I like Crystal's takes on things. And then I watched, I want to say it was one of her appearances on Bill Maher, and she really excoriated whoever she was talking to. And I thought, oh, okay, she is fantastic. She's really won me over. I mean, this is what she does best. This is where she really proves her worth as a journalist, when she is taking someone who rightfully deserves to be taken down. And she really did that here with Alyssa Slotkin. And again, the kind of balls to ask someone, why did you want to talk to us when it's a senator? I respect that. So let's watch this clip, and it starts at around 9:20, where I think we wanted to get started.
Cost of living. And I think that ignores a big elephant in the room, especially when you're talking about even Zohran Mamdani. Mm-hmm. The reason Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer don't want to endorse him is because of his position on Israel. The single most viral clip that he had in that election actually wasn't about cost of living, even though that's what he wanted to make his campaign about. His opponents, Andrew Cuomo in particular, wanted to make it all about accusing him of anti-Semitism and attacking him for his views on Israel and Palestine. So the most viral moment from that entire campaign, I believe, was this moment on the debate stage. Guys, this is E1. Let me go ahead and play this for you, and then I want to get your reaction.
Mr. Mamdani.
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
Now, this was considered very controversial when he said it, and I think the results are in at this point that he didn't win in spite of his position there. He won in part because of it, including, if you listen to Andrew Cuomo's numbers, he won a majority of Jewish voters inside of New York City. And so what I'm curious for your view on is, while, you know, I would love to debate you on your healthcare policy, I think we need Medicare for all, you think public option, your housing policy, et cetera. I'm just being really real with you. I don't really hear what you say if you are still supporting a genocide in Gaza. And that's, for me, you know, I'm speaking for myself, but I know there are millions of other people who feel the same, that you have to at least cross this sort of moral threshold. And what it indicates to people, and I think part of why, you know, Zoran won so many people in New York City, young people in particular, but Jewish New Yorkers, people across the board, is because it was a sign of, number one, okay, you're focused on New York City first and foremost. Number two, you're willing to take the heat on an issue that is really difficult for you, where you're being overtly smeared as an anti-Semite. And number three, there's no, you know, entrenched interest that's going to control. You have a spine, you have principles, you're willing to stand up for something. And so, you know, I'm curious for your reflections on that because of your voting record and where you've stood on this conflict.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the proudest moments that I had in my last election, where I just won on the same ballot as Donald Trump, was that I won a majority of Jewish voters in Michigan. We have a large Jewish population. And I won Dearborn, Dearborn Heights, and Hamtramck, the 3 Muslim-dominated cities. Trump won 2 out of the 3. So I think the thing that I would push back on is the voters. Voters vote with their feet, right? We have a moment in an election where they get to decide. And there was no issue that was more difficult for me in this last, I would say, 6 years, but certainly in this last election, other than this issue, because it's personal. I'm a Middle East analyst by training. And so what I tried to do, and why I think I managed to win both those communities, is call balls and strikes, literally up to this week, on what's going on.
So let's talk a little bit more about that.
But I think it's important, right? If you're going to push on me, then I think, like, there's one of us that's had an election and had to appeal to my voters and win. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that Mr. Mamdani won. Or actually, I didn't know his name. I didn't know much about him until he won. But because I think this issue is motivating people in a very visceral and personal way.
Yeah.
But it's not the only issue that my voters in Michigan care about.
Of course.
And the online world is extremely, extremely focused on this. But that doesn't always represent the majority. And I think if I can push back, like we're out on the road every day in Michigan when I'm there. In some communities, that issue is the number one issue, 100%. And like, I mean, up till this morning, right? Like people texting my phone and talking about a plan, some of the things we're working on. But I go outside the Detroit area, it's not in the top 40.
But Senator, it's not just a political issue, it's also a moral issue is what I'm trying to get to. So let's talk about those, you know, calling of balls and strikes, if you will. So first of all, do you accept that Israel has a policy of enforced famine and starvation in the Gaza Strip?
I think I literally put my name on a letter yesterday or last night that says, like, a policy of starvation, people are.
Strongly worded letter. And then she goes on to say that it's not a genocide. She wouldn't label it a genocide, despite the fact that B'Tselem, even an Israeli organization, just this last week labeled it a genocide. And also pundits for the New York Times are now even calling it a genocide. And almost every single person who is a historian regarding genocide have called red flags on this and called it a genocide. So I think that words at this point do matter.
They absolutely do. I mean, Amnesty International has come out and called it a genocide. Aid organizations, any major aid organization is probably calling this a genocide. I can't think of one that is actually important enough to mention that is not. I mean, yeah, she said nothing, right? She said nothing. She hardly answered Crystal's question. She did not provide any kind of position on this. And then, as you said, she pivoted to the stupid letter, as if that like shields her in some way. And the ask in the letter was nothing. So she will go on to say that she worked with a, diverse coalition of people trying to get aid into Gaza, essentially baby formula, right? Because
baby
that
formula and vitamins, because she said that
and vitamins.
No one else can have that. So it's this indication that we're not going to feed adults, we're not going to feed older children, just babies and people with vitamins. Like what that was monstrous to me. That was probably one of the most appalling pieces of the interview.
The vitamin part I must have been so filled with rage that it got past me. But yeah, I mean, of course, baby, like, yes, we should be doing that. We should be getting baby formula to babies. It is horrific that we even need to be having this conversation right now, but it is the least controversial thing. And I mean, even if you ask Netanyahu, like, should babies in Gaza be getting formula, he would say yes. I mean, in practice, would the reality match that? Of course not. But of course he would say yes to that.
But hard to argue that Israel should allow this because it's not actually food to people, and that the only people it would be feeding is small children and babies. That is an indicator that she's saying subconsciously, whether she realizes it or not, that Israel is intentionally starving people and that they would be averse to actual food coming in for people who are of adult age or teenagers or whoever else other than infants and very small children, which is abhorrent in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I also would not directly on Gaza, but I did also want to flag that, further in this interview, she also, they were talking about Zoran and his win, and she kind of just like tells on herself and says, well, I don't really know much about New York City politics. Did he win the primary? But you guys have another, a general election coming up, right? Like, I don't know if that was an act, to try to, get herself off the hook for having to, again, take a position on this. But it was happening within the context of Hakeem Jeffries not endorsing Zoran and Crystal calling her out for, you guys say vote blue no matter who. Here's a good opportunity to prove that you actually mean it. If that is what, like, Hakeem Jeffries, I am sure that he has said that 1,000 times. I'm sure if we went looking, we would pull something up. But, now is the time to prove that you actually mean that. I mean, I don't believe in that and I don't agree with it, but they say it and they apparently do. So now would be a good time to do that, to endorse Zoran, and they haven't. And, and that's kind of what led Crystal, to talking about Gaza, because as we showed in the clip, like, part of the reason, and we're going to talk about more, part of the reason that he did win is because of his pro-Palestine position and not in spite of it. As, we are told, it would be a political catastrophe for anyone to openly say free Palestine. Clearly not. Clearly the public doesn't agree with that. Only, members of Congress who are getting AIPAC money agree with that. And, so again, I say this to say she was similarly unwilling to say anything definitively here. And it just, I don't know. She just embodies everything that people don't like about politicians.
Like
Everything that
you
people
said when
don't
we were
like
prepping for this, she has the same type of cadence and demeanor as somebody like a Hillary Clinton. She is that epitome of a moderate. I put her in the same category as maybe a Pete Buttigieg, because they don't actually embody any push for any kind of real change. They're moderate to the point where they do have class awareness, but the class that they're protecting is their own. And as she said, she's like, this is near and dear to me because I was fed. I was fed. I worked under the administrations that were pushing for the Gulf War and supported the Gulf War. So yeah, the Middle East matters to me. Well, in what kind of way?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, to that point, like, she is constantly saying, well, I was a Middle East analyst, as if that, we're supposed to just take what she's saying for granted. I mean, I don't know if she does not have a real position on this, a real outlined, fleshed out position on Palestine in one direction or the other, right? Then I mean, she obviously was not very good at her job, or is, I don't know, feigning not having been very good, so that again she doesn't have to take a position that she thinks might not benefit her in some way. So yeah, I mean, the rest of the interview was just a bloodbath. Bloodbath. I mean, Crystal kept pressing her on her position, and Alyssa Slotkin just kind of deteriorated further and further as it went on. I mean, she had nothing useful.
Out for sending weapons, to voting to send weapons to kill children.
Yeah. Voting to send weapons to kill children while we are, probably airdropping baby formula, which we know that, first of all, I mean, all of these trickles of aid are meaningless compared to the amount of aid that actually needs to get into Gaza. I mean, there was the UN-backed food monitor, the IPC, they released a report earlier this week. And in the report, they said, Gaza needs 62,000 tons of food each month to meet the basic needs of people to just survive. And during the first couple of months of the blockade, no food was going in. March and April, there was no food going into Gaza. And during the following 2 months, 1 month, 30-something thousand tons went in. And the other month, I'm not remembering the exact figure on, but it was not 62,000. And it wouldn't matter. After 2 months of no food going in, half of what you need going in 1 month, you're not making up for it. So all of, the trickle of aid that's going in, it doesn't do anything. And as we are sitting here, people are dying of starvation.
And not to mention that they, all infrastructure is leveled almost. And one of the first things that they targeted in November of 2023 were places where bread was being made. Where bread, food, manufacturing were some of the first places that were hit, even before the hospitals and universities were hit, or around the same time. But I remember report after report about how there were places that were being hit that were the places where stores of food were being stored, where, food was being produced, specifically bread companies.
Yeah, which ensures that the entire population is totally dependent on aid coming into Gaza.
Absolutely.
To eat anything. And if Israel is able to block that from happening, then you just weaponize starvation. I'm sure that there's more that we could say about this specifically, but we have we have several more things that we want to talk about as far as this goes. And Slotkin was, she made the rounds yesterday. So if we could pull up the Ken Klippenstein tweet about Slotkin being on Stephen Colbert yesterday.
This was the video?
This was the Ken Klippenstein tweet. It does have a video. There's a video clip of her being on Colbert.
With what's going on in Gaza. No one questions that it's a long-standing, painful war that people have been losing for years, right? But to me, the responsibility to get humanitarian aid in is not an open question. We know what that answer is. And just this, literally today, we put out, Michigan is a state that has the largest Arab and Muslim American population in the country, a very large Jewish population. A ton of people feel this at a very visceral, personal, family level. And for the first time in the past week, I had a rabbi and a Muslim leader come to me and say, we want to do something together. We will pay for all of it. We'll buy all the formula, baby formula, and all the clean water. Please, can we just green light that aid always getting in, no matter what's going on with negotiations, no matter what's happening? We put that out, pushed it with Rubio today, Secretary Rubio. But that to me is like people of many different faiths understand that humanitarian aid getting into children is an American value, a Jewish value, and a Muslim value. So that to me is, it's a requirement.
Ultimately, even for American citizens who are staunch allies of Israel, what do you imagine is the?
So monstrous applause for nothing. For saying, we can meet the bare minimum, maybe, for babies.
For infants.
For infants, yeah.
As if adult lives don't matter. Yeah.
No, of course not. I mean, that is a consistent thread with these people. We care about infants, as yours, a distinction, as you're saying. But once someone has grown up, we obviously don't care about them anymore. That is totally meaningless. Again, I find it really demoralizing that she is able to get on a show like Stephen Colbert, who also, I know that we are so many years removed from this, but I remember the Colbert Report. I watched him then, and he was great. He was great in his character as a faux conservative, and then seeing him interview someone like Alyssa Slotkin and be so generous. It's still really, really, it gets to me. But yeah, no, obviously, I understand it's a late night show. He's not a journalist. He's not pretending to be a journalist anymore. So no pushback. But again, her ability to use that platform to get applause, to behave as if she is doing something with her power is disgusting. And meanwhile, while this was happening, she was missing a vote. So she missed a vote. Senator Sanders, Bernie Sanders, put a resolution forth to block arms sales to Israel.
So beyond a strongly worded letter, something real.
Something that you can do with your power as a senator. They like to say, well, Democrats are, as the other AP article put it, Democrats are blocked out of power. Okay, well, here's something that you can do. And instead of doing that, she was on Stephen Colbert. So this is the next article. Senate rejects bid to halt sale of bombs and rifles to Israel, but Democratic opposition grows. So the Senate rejected an offer Wednesday from Senator Bernie Sanders to block the sale of U.S. bombs and firearms to Israel, though the vote showed a growing number of Democrats opposed to the arms sales amid widespread hunger and suffering in Gaza. Sanders, an independent from Vermont, has repeatedly tried to block the sale of offensive weapons to Israel over the last year. The resolutions before the Senate on Tuesday would have stopped the sale of 675 million bombs, as well as shipments of 20,000 automatic assault rifles to Israel. They again failed to gain passage, but 27 Democrats, more than half the caucus, voted for the resolution that applied to assault rifles, and 24 voted for the resolution that applied to bomb sales. It was more than any of Sanders' previous efforts, which at a high mark in November last year gained 18 votes from Democrats. The vote tally showed how the images of starvation emerging from Gaza are creating a growing schism in what has traditionally been overwhelming support for Israel from both Democratic and Republican lawmakers. So, I mean, she as you said, could have been doing something. You know, she claims to be
That
powerless.
moment.
They all claim to be powerless. There's nothing that they can do. I don't understand why Bernie Sanders seems to be able to do something and they can't. I mean, she could have introduced a resolution. I don't see why she couldn't also do that. Why can't she also do the same thing? Why
all she had to do here was show up and vote.
Yeah.
But it was more important to go on a late night show than it was to show up and vote to end a genocide or to hamper a genocide.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy, and it seems intentional, right? After being on breaking points and being so excoriated,
and requesting to be on breaking points at that. She requested to go. Yeah.
I appreciated the I don't know. I almost want to say like vanity in making the distinction here. When Crystal called her out for that, she said, well, when my team pitched me on being on your show, as if she's like, I would not have reached out to you guys. My team pitched me on it. So I thought that it was funny, the ego on some of these people to need to say something like that. But I mean, yeah, after being on breaking points and having someone like Crystal just put her in her place, she still did nothing. She still did nothing alongside other people. So we have the actual tweet from Ken Klippenstein. So let's look at this. So Democratic senators who voted against blocking arms sales to Israel. We have a long list of people: Michael Bennett, Richard Blumenthal, Cory Booker, Maria Cantwell, Chris Coons, Catherine Cortez Masto, John Fetterman, Kirsten Gillibrand, Maggie Hassan, John Hickenlooper, Alex Padilla, Adam Schiff, Chuck Schumer, Jackie Rawson, Mark Warner, and Ron Wyden. And again, these three senators missed the vote. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what these people are doing. And several of these individuals on this list signed that letter. So Chuck Schumer is one of the people who organized that letter. That is, so important to send out a letter about this. But Chuck Schumer and Adam Schiff, they were both involved. I believe Cory Booker also signed that letter. And I mean, it's just
the letter. They can hold the Trump administration accountable. The letter they can not even hold them accountable. They can virtue signal that they're trying to hold the Trump administration accountable. This is real accountability. This is real pressure toward Israel and toward this current administration. Can't have that. Can't have any kind of real pressure. Can't do anything about funds, do anything about actual armament.
No, of course not. Of course not. And I wonder why. I wonder why any of these people on this list in particular would be so reticent to do something that actually matters. I wonder why Cory Booker, of all people, would not want to do anything meaningful against Israel. I'm sure it has nothing to do with getting money from AIPAC. I'm sure that has nothing to do with anybody on this list. Couldn't possibly be, what's behind.
We'll do another 36 hours in the House, or 36 hours filibustering in order to, virtue signal.
Yeah, super effective. It really helped. Yeah, really helped. And I mean, I don't know. It's just all just such a show of cynicism when we're talking about a genocide. And I feel like I've said this a few times before, just on various like Status Coup videos and live streams, but so many of these people, and just so many people in this country in general, would like to believe that if the Holocaust was happening right now, they would be doing something. They would be standing up in some way. They would be, protecting their Jewish friends and neighbors. They would have been against the Japanese internment camps. They would have been against all of it. They would have spoken out. They would have taken some kind of action. Whatever you're doing right now, while a genocide is happening, is what you would have been doing during World War II. That's it. And if the answer is nothing, or writing a fucking letter, that's what you would have been doing during World War II. And don't kid yourself into thinking that it's anything beyond that. It's not. If you are a coward now, you would have been a coward then, and these people are surely cowards and would have been then. It's easy to say, I would have done something, decades and decades after the thing has already happened. And we have already decided that, what the right side of history looks like. We have determined that already. So it's easy to say after the fact, when someone has already done that work for you, that I would have been for that thing or against that other thing.
This is reminding me of the response after the Iraq War, right? The response to the Patriot Act, the response to Guantanamo Bay, the response to the horrific renditionings that were happening at the time, and when footage was coming out about Abu Ghraib. Before that, bipartisan legislation. I mean, they were fully behind George W. Bush. Democrats were fully behind George W. Bush, most of them, in George W. Bush's first term.
Yeah.
They were all in. They were all in for the Iraq War. But now many of the same senators are still up there who were seated, Chuck Schumer included, who supported this, who now will deny or will whitewash over the fact that they supported and armed that war, that they supported the authorized use of military force that has been abused by every single administration since.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a book that has probably the best title of any book I've heard of recently. It's called One Day Everyone Will Have Been Against This. And it's perfect. It is exactly right. One day everyone will have always been against this. And people will fool themselves into thinking that. And these Democrats, these people who signed this letter now, who are getting on board when the evidence is irrefutable. Not that it hasn't been this whole time, right? But now that we are having just such a flood of photos and videos and reporting out of Gaza showing starving babies and starving humans, right? And people just inundating these aid centers. Just masses of people walking through, totally bombed out areas to get a sack of flour.
And I will also say, it's not that we're not holding Republicans' feet to the fire. There were Republicans that did not vote for this bill, all of them, for almost all of them, for instance, did not vote for Bernie's bill, of course. And yes, they're just as culpable. But the difference here is, and what we're pointing out, and we're about to show a clip from the Pod Save boys that'll kind of illustrate this from Pod Save America, is that the Democrats are now virtue signaling that they're somehow different or they're somehow better, while at the same time continuing to vote, just like in the House, they all voted against Marjorie Taylor Greene and Rashida Tlaib and the bill that was a bipartisan bill that 4 members of the House tried to put forward. Even AOC voted to not stop funding the Iron Dome. She voted against stopping the funding of the Iron Dome, which almost every member, all but 5 members of the House, voted against stopping the funding of Israel just last week, and we covered that here. But yet they'll come out in their virtue signal that they want to hold Israel accountable. They'll write a strongly worded letter and then not do anything. The Republicans aren't pretending. They're just as horrible and they need to be held accountable, but they're not out here pretending that they care. They're not out here pretending that they're going to hold Israel accountable while still holding back any mechanisms for actual accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They are as horrible as they say that they are. And the Democrats pretend like they are not. And, they will use things like this letter to suggest, 10 years from now, when history has decided, when it's easy to know what the correct choice to make will have been, they will say, we were against this. And we were the whole time. Didn't you see that letter that we wrote? We were against it this whole time. And of course, we will know that to not have been true. So we can move on to the clip from Pod Saves America. Let's watch this.
And I don't think Democratic candidates should take money from AIPAC or vote to fund military support for Israel anymore. I really don't. In this government, absolutely not. And that especially includes I think the next Democratic nominee for president.
Things I want to see Democrats at least calling for is cutting off military assistance to Israel. It's a rich country, by the way. They don't need our $3 billion a year. And hands up, right? Barack Obama signed a 10-year MOU for $3.3 billion a year. Like, so we're part of the problem here. Let's correct it. I would like to see talk about sanctioning Israeli government officials who use genocidal rhetoric or who talk about ethnic cleansing openly. We should support a ceasefire resolution at the UN. We should demand that international press be allowed into the Gaza Strip to report on what's happening without an IDF minder. It's insane. The press still can't go into Gaza and cover what's happening. And I also think like there has to be a total mindset change in the Democratic Party. When the war ends, we are not going back to the pre-October 7th status quo because it's not where the party is. It's not where the world is. We're not going to shovel billions a year in military aid. We're not going to veto every effort to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN. We should not take money from AIPAC. And like I will hold out hope for better political leadership in the US and in Israel. But we have to also recognize that the Biden era hug Bibi Netanyahu strategy has to be thrown in the trash can for fucking ever. Netanyahu is a bad actor. He's continuing a war for political purposes. He bombs Lebanon when he wants to. He bombs Iran when he wants to. He bombs Syria when he wants to. This is not a partner we can count on. This is not someone who is like leading to calm and stability in the region, which should be a core interest.
Like at this point, cutting off military funding for a government that is starving 2 million people and advertising how they're ethnically cleansing the Palestinians seems like the least we can do.
Especially if we're going to head into a primary, like table stakes is going to be no more military aid for Israel. So there will have to be a shift. And I do think that will mean putting far more pressure on Israel. And that's what I think Democrats want. By the way, that's what the country wants. And when you poll Israelis, they say they want a fucking ceasefire. Israelis want the hostages returned through a negotiated settlement. And by the way, that's the way in which the vast majority of hostages who were returned were able to be returned.
I mean, I don't know. When we were talking about this clip while we were getting ready for the live stream, we both said like it's fucking infuriating, and I guess I would just say fuck those guys. Like it feels like the same thing that it is the same thing that we've been talking about, that it's easy to say this now. It's easy to say these things now. I mean, I don't disagree with what they've said, obviously.
They're correct.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
But when we're talking about a genocide and a famine, it is too little, too late. 60,000 people are already fucking dead.
And that's the low estimate, sadly.
And
that's the low estimate. That's all that we know. There's tens of thousands missing and potentially under the rubble.
I mean, the actual cost of life could be so much greater that
unfathomable.
Difficult to comprehend. Yeah.
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 And one of the things that really upsets me about this is I was following them during the prior to the election and when Biden was running. And yeah, there was one point when they said, you know, he has some cognitive decline. Maybe he should step down. And then they caught a lot of flack for that. But they kept calling him the greatest president of our time while he was actively arming and aiding a genocide. Actively arming and aiding a genocide at the time. They also talked about how everyone needs to get behind Kamala. They smeared the Pod Save America guys smeared the uncommitted movement, saying that, you know, we need to get behind her because it would be easier for them to fight under that administration than a Trump administration, which kind of undermines what they were doing, which was stop arming Israel now. So yeah, they've joined the party. Thanks, guys. And it's probably because a poll that we're about to show from Gallup, that the last poll they did before this one was in November of 2023. So they haven't done a poll in years on this, which is, you know, months and months and months, which is surprising. But the latest poll that came out right when the Democrats started changing their tune, and we'll show you this in a couple minutes, showed that that Israel has lost a tremendous amount of favor across partisan lines, and particularly among Democrats. So now they're worried that they're going to lose midterms, and it's more about electability than it is. And you could hear that in their speech, that it was more about electability than it is that these are human beings. And that's what really made me angry. I'm glad that they've came to the right position, but at the same time, it's a little too little, a little too late. You had a platform with millions and millions of people and whitewashed this genocide for months, and smeared protesters as if it was just some fringe movement. And now that you know that it's not, now that you understand the majority of the country want this suffering to end, then you somehow gain your humanity. Give me a break. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
Really,
Everything that you said is correct. And anyone who's not angry about it should be. Why aren't you? Why don't you find this infuriating? There are human beings, regular people just like us, dying right now, and have been for almost 2 years, for 22 months. It has been live streamed. We have seen a genocide be live streamed for 22 months. I think I've mentioned this, when we were talking on another live stream, maybe a couple months ago. But I mean, in the beginning, after October 2023, I had started archiving the photos and videos that were coming across my social media feed, and I had to stop. It was too much. I couldn't handle seeing it every day, just a constant, like my entire social media feed is that and has been since then. And, as you were saying, they have smeared people who are out in the streets, have been out in the streets, trying to put a stop to this. We've been covering those protests here. John Farina has covered quite a lot of them. People have been out on the streets trying to make their voices heard. They didn't care then. And they were just worried.
Almost 130 protests, I believe. Hundreds of thousands of people is not an exaggeration, have been out on the streets regarding this issue. And that's just the people that cared enough to actually mobilize and get on the ground. Imagine how many people care about it that weren't able to get out and protest or weren't able to take that day off to go.
Yeah, so many more. And, just to sidetrack us for just a second, I mean, if we're talking about people, out on the streets, I was talking to one of our sources in Gaza, a 21-year-old student. And, the conversation was heavy, as you would imagine that it is. And I just said something to the effect of I hope you know that there are people who care and are trying. Because he had said something to the effect of, they're watching. People are watching and they're lazy and they haven't done anything. And that was my response to that. And he just said, well, they failed. They failed to bring an end to our suffering. And it's because of people like the Pod Save America boys who came in now that it's too late to stop most of this, now that people have lost their friends, their loved ones, their families, everything that they have on this planet. They have
76% of Gaza is leveled. 76% of infrastructure is gone. And just last week, Israel did a vote to annex all of the West Bank. The Knesset voted to annex the entire West Bank.
So I'm really glad that they came on board now. It's really helpful for everyone. Again, when you're talking about genocide and famine and death, there is a time limit on it. Every second matters.
Yeah.
Every second matters. Every moment means a life can potentially be saved or not. And they dragged their heels for 22 months.
And you have a tweet here from just 16 days ago from the members of Congress, bipartisan.
Yes.
With Bibi Netanyahu, with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah. So here are our Congress members. And, as people flagged when this came out, there's Cory Booker in the back hiding, trying to pretend like he's not part of this. And I think that this photo was actually attached to a recent tweet from Cory Booker. So if we could go to the next tweet from him. So this is from Cory Booker. Witnessing the catastrophic hunger and suffering of civilians, especially children, women, the sick, and elderly in Gaza has been heartbreaking. The crisis in Gaza must be met with an immediate and drastic surge in life-saving resources such as desperately needed food, water, and medicine, including therapeutic foods. For those suffering from severe malnutrition, it is our collective moral duty to ensure that humanitarian relief reaches those who need it most urgently. The strategy of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has not worked. Proven methods to get humanitarian aid to those in need while preventing diversion to Hamas must be be used to flood the zone now. Every moment of delay will cost lives and cause irreparable harm to the health of children, pregnant women, and other civilians. We must do all we can to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza as part of the strategy to save lives, decrease Hamas's influence and capabilities, release all remaining hostages, strengthen Israel's security, and ultimately end this war. These goals are not mutually exclusive. Rather, they go hand in hand. So that is what Cory Booker had to say about this recently. And again, that follows a photo of him from 16 days ago with Benjamin Netanyahu.
And following him voting to continue to send weapons to Israel.
Yeah, more importantly, right? More importantly than that. And I mean, you know, the first paragraph, you know, outlines how much he does not like seeing the heartbreaking suffering in Gaza, how much they desperately need food and aid, and how devastated the entire population is, and then goes on to say, we have to decrease Hamas's influence and capability. They have to release all remaining hostages, strengthen Israel's security, and ultimately end the war. These goals are not mutually exclusive. Rather, they go hand in hand. I mean, that's just crazy. That is crazy. I asked one of our sources about, you know, what they think about the narrative that's sold to us here about, you know, Hamas is, they're the ones hiding food and aid from people. They're the ones in control of it. And he said, you know, this is a 21-year-old student. He said, the way I see it is Hamas eats from the aid because they are human. They're not in control of it, but they eat it because they're human beings. So he, you know, we talked about this further, and, you know, he said on the ground, that's not what he's seeing. There are thieves and people who, you know, in times of war, take advantage of situations, but he's not seeing this. And obviously, I'm not suggesting that this one person, you know, has the full read on everything that's happening. But I mean, the idea that the reason that there are so many hungry people in Gaza is Hamas is insanity.
Well, what are they stealing? There's been a blockade on aid, and before that, we saw that aid was heavily stagnated, right? There was a full blockade for the first, I believe it was almost 60 days, directly after October 7th. And then after that, there was trickling of aid, but there has never been the right amount of aid going in this entire time. And then there was a full blockade almost 90 days ago. So
yeah.
And this entire time, there have been groups of settlers that have gone and have raided the aid, have actively sat in front of the trucks in the roadways. I saw a video this week of they were having their children pull aid off the truck and stomp on it and destroy it, lighting the backs of trucks on fire, and with IOF soldiers standing there just witnessing it, not stopping this.
Yeah.
So
of course
we don't even have any reports on how much aid they have actively destroyed, but it could be a staggering amount because this has been daily.
I'm sure. And the people of Gaza are so desperate because of all of this that, you know, we saw yesterday that there were aid trucks that were rumored to be coming in through the Zakim crossing. And, you know, people thought that there might be food there. So people went to where there might be food and they were shot at, you know, and people know. It's not like people don't know. They know that they might get shot and die or get gassed or stampeded and trampled to death if they go to, you know, any area that is dispersing aid, because they're all in heavily militarized zones. They know that, and they are so desperate that they go anyway because they are starving and they just want to get food for themselves and their families. And I don't know, to couch the situation in anything other than that is insanity. And, you know, to move to the point that we're going to get to next, the reason why some of the Democrats probably are changing their tune, at least in rhetoric, is, as you said, when we were getting, the live stream together, electability. Because that's the only thing that they can understand. They can only understand things through the lens of electoralism. And if they can't understand it through the lens of electoralism, they don't care about it. It's not something that they value. Even a genocide, a famine that has been affecting majority children and women, they still don't care about that until it affects them personally, because they are a bunch of narcissists. Like, I don't even understand the barrenness you must have. I don't know if barrenness is a word, but how barren a soul must be to be able to make something like a genocide about you and whether or not you'll be able to remain in office.
It's a twisted, dark kind of narcissism and opportunism, and yeah, that's rampant. But this Gallup poll, if you could pull that up for us, Colin. The Gallup polling is, this article is amazing. So if you can scroll down just a little bit for us. So it says America's approval, hold on, I'll put it up here so I can read that for you real quick. Let's see, it says America's approval of Israel's military actions in Gaza has fallen 10 points since prior measurement in September and is now at 32%, the lowest rating since Gallup first asked the question in November of 2023. Disapproval of military action has now reached 60%. So 60% in the country. And you can see on this graph, you can actually see the shift here. We have of approval to disapproval. So around October of this year, I guess it was a fairly clear split, but the majority still disapproved. 48% still disapproved as opposed to 42% approved. But now those margins have grown to 60% disapprove with 32% approval ratings. And Gallup is interesting because it more targets, I think, because of how it targets, it doesn't target independents as well, and it more targets based on, oftentimes, on voter rolls. I'd have to look at this actual poll itself. Mm-hmm. But one of the problems with Gallup is that, it does tend to poll establishment voters more than it will like independent voters. So this makes this even more interesting because it's a likelihood that these more traditional establishment voters that we are seeing here are saying, no, we don't support it. 60% means that this is a bipartisan sentiment among voters. And can we scroll down to the party divide, support for Israel's military action by party ID. So this says the decline in approval is driven by 16-point drops among both 16 points. A 16-point drop among both Democrats and independents, as has been the case since the start of the conflict. Independents, 25%, express higher approval rating than Democrats at 8%. So only 8% of Democrats approve. But both groups currently register their lowest readings to date. In contrast, 71% of Republicans say they approve of Israel's actions in Gaza, up from 66% in September. And we can take a look here. So it declined a little bit among Republicans in their last poll and then went up a few points. But we see a drastic decline in support. 36% as of before pre-January 2024, 36% down to only 8% support among Democrats.
That's incredible. Like, truly incredible. That is such a precipitous drop in such a short period of time.
Yes, that's a massive drop. I mean, that's almost 30 points.
I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy, and
gives me a little bit of faith in humanity. I mean, people are paying attention and actually give a damn.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that this is the effect that having a like live streamed genocide would have on people. It's in your face. You can't escape it. I would hope that necessarily means that you would be against it.
And that people are being informed on this when before they would more traditionally like ignore this kind of news. So I do believe, and I know we were talking about this before the live stream, I do believe that this polling is part of the reason that Democrats are freaking out now. I think it's part of the reason, and I can't say for sure, but I'm suspicious that, you know, this rhetoric from Pod Save America came out at the same time as this poll, and that the Democratic Party, the entire Democratic Party shift has come out at around this time, and now Slotkin is making her rounds. And Slotkin, they made the darling. They had her do the state of the country, you know,
yeah,
retort to the last State of the Union. What do they call it? I don't think they call it the State of the Union address, but the presidential address that Trump made or whatever. And where she you know tried to resurrect Ronald Reagan and Reaganomics. But now she's making her rounds on knowing that she's going to be confronted, knowing that this issue is on the forefront, I think, in order to pull people back.
Yeah, pull people back, try to get them onto the economic issues. You know, don't talk about Palestine, we can talk about affordability. You know, that would have been that was a, you know, kind of no-go area prior to. We know that Democrats have been gaslighting, you know, the public about their own economic realities. But now it's like, no. Well, if, you know, we can talk about it now a little bit. We can talk about it now a little bit. They've been forced into a corner on both of these issues by Zoran.
Yeah. Oh, and there's two other things before we get to the Zoran polling that I think ties to that. And that is that they also polled on American approval of Israel's military actions in Iran. 38% of adults, U.S. adults polled overall approve. 54% disapprove, and the other were on the fence. So the majority are either on the fence or disapprove. Republicans, of course, 78% approve. Yeah, let's go in and bomb them people over there. But 18% disapprove. I'm a redneck, so I'm allowed to make fun of those accents. Independents, 60% disapprove. Democrats, 79% disapprove of actions in Iran. That's huge. 79%. So Chuck Schumer was out there a month ago saying it's time we take on Iran, when 79% disapprove of taking on Iran. And then there are also massive spikes in disapproval of Benjamin Netanyahu, and that's also what's happened. So overall, unfavorability of Benjamin Netanyahu is now at 52%, and look at that. Just look at those graphics. And favorable, look at how much it's declined, only 29%. And no opinion is around 20%. And that 20% can always be swayed in either direction, but this case is probably likely to be swayed in the direction of the majority. So those were a few other of the interesting polls that were done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I guess.
Oh, and among Democrats, approval for Benjamin Netanyahu is at 9%.
I mean, that is historic. A historic low.
From 31 to 9%.
Over no time.
Mm-hmm.
No time whatsoever. I mean, yeah, it's insane. So my reading on the Democrats' like sudden, you know, awareness that a genocide has been going on for like, you know, 2 years was that they saw the public opinion starting to turn alongside the flood of like irrefutable images, irrefutable videos, the reporting that's been coming out of Gaza, and you know, I guess that this poll adds for me a layer of, oh, well, of course, it was, you know, not just that. It was.
We told you this would impact the election, did we not? We said it over and over again. Those of us paying attention said, what is happening in Gaza is going to have irreparable damage in the presidential election, people begged Kamala Harris to
Yeah.
switch gears and the Biden administration, because we said the Democratic Party is handing us Trump because they will not move on this issue.
On a genocide, to be clear, it is a genocide that we're talking about, that they wouldn't move on. This was a no-go issue for them, something that they could not possibly be moved on. So, I mean, I don't know. They deserve everything that they get. The American people obviously get it, but they for sure do. And because they did not move, people have moved on without them. People have moved on without them. So, you know, now we have Zoran, who won the primary in New York City. And again, polling shows exactly what we are saying and have been saying this whole time. So if we could go to the next piece in the list, the AM New York piece. So New York City mayor's race, new poll finds Mamdani's support for Palestinian rights and criticism of Israel helped him win primary. So counter to everything that they've been saying. So if we could scroll down a little bit. A new Data for Progress poll published Tuesday shows that primary voters for Assembly member Zoran Mamdani were mostly excited by the Democratic Socialist plans to lower costs and tax the rich and his support for Palestinian rights. The poll, published jointly by Data for Progress and the Institute for Middle East Understanding Policy Project, surveyed Mamdani primary voters on what drove them to support the 33-year-old candidate. The candidate delivered former Governor Andrew Cuomo a crushing defeat against the odds that most polls had predicted. Today's poll shows that Mamdani's support for Palestinian rights was important to 96% of his voters, for 83% of his voters. I mean, crazy. It swayed their votes. So 96% of his voters it was important to, and for 83% of his voters, it swayed their votes. His willingness to criticize the Israeli government was important to 88% of his primary voters, and 55% said it swayed their votes, according to the poll.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's incredible. That is a lot, and it just shows how many people support Palestinian rights, support ending a genocide. That's it. Ending a genocide, the Holocaust of our time. A lot of people, turns out, don't actually like that and can recognize in the moment that that's happening and don't want to see it happen. We don't have to wait for, you know, history to tell us that actually, no, that was a bad. We can decide right now and say that we don't want this. So, you know, if Democrats can't do that, they can't meet the bare minimum of like humanity while they're in office, other people will come and they will usurp them. The people will find leaders who believe in the things that they want because they are sick and tired of people like Alyssa Slotkin who can't have a position on this. So,
cowards. She's a coward.
She is a coward.
Or she doesn't care. One or the other. She's either a coward or she's a narcissist and doesn't care about, doesn't see Palestinians as human beings. That's the only two options here.
I suspect it is a lot of that. You know, it's again, like you can't know what someone is thinking. You can't know truly what motivates them. But you can infer something from their material actions, which she's done nothing of, and anything that she's done amounts to, you know, virtue signaling and nothing significant, nothing truly material. I think that people like Alyssa Slotkin and just Democrats in general just want it to go away. They see it as an impediment to their goal, which is to remain in power and continue throwing crumbs at us and telling us that incrementalism will bring us the things that we want. We'll just have to wait, you know, 50 lifetimes until the entire planet has gone up in flames. If we can wait until then, we'll get the things that we want. And the people don't want it. The people don't want it. They instead are finding people who align more with their values, which is for a free Palestine for so many people.
Mm-hmm. And like we were saying from the very first subject that we talked about today, when it comes to insider trading, and 86% polled 80 to 86% over and over again. This is a universal concept among voters in the United States that no, we don't want insider trading, to the majority of people wanting exposure and answers to the Epstein case, overwhelming universal support for that, to what we're seeing now with Mamdani. If you actually run and instead of just blocking candidates for running, which they're going to try to do now to Mamdani, as we were saying before, the vote blue no matter who only goes so far when it's somebody that's running on policies that corporate America is a little bit frightened by, because it might mean more empowerment for workers and for not for the upper crust of classes in the United States, then the party blocks those kinds of people. And we're seeing that response about Mamdani right now. And we're also seeing them trying to desperately virtue signal in order to pull themselves out of the hole a little bit before the midterms. But I don't think people are as naive as they used to be.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's all true. I don't know. It's like I don't think that, as you're saying, these tiny crumbs are going to cut it, especially now.
Oh,
It's
we
not.
do have one last clip. I'm sorry, you can wrap up, but we do have one last clip just to put a pretty bow on everything when we close out as well.
Yeah, so we have that. I guess I would just say, to just and your point. I mean, people now see that they can actually get the thing that they want. And it's, obviously, like, people are less naive. Their information is more readily available. And also, like, we've seen now, we can get the things that we want. We have to want it enough to, on our own, take material action to, go out and support a candidate, to, organize for them. If people do that, you can have the person that you want in office who stands for the things that you also stand for. So I think it's, it's being shown that no, we can have a nice thing. We can have a nice thing too. So as you said, we have a perfect clip to tie everything up. So if we could play the last clip that we have here.
Now, Israeli forces are deliberately shooting and starving Palestinians lining up for food. Over 1,000 murdered in the past 2 months alone, according to the UN. The so-called Gaza, quote, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a joke, inhumane, immoral. It's a deadly sham, a trap backed by the Israeli government and the Trump administration. The United Nations even calls it a death trap. The Israeli soldiers themselves have admitted themselves that they were ordered to deliberately shoot unarmed Palestinians that were just coming there, creating a killing field. This is illegitimate organization that Trump administration with the Israeli government, again, giving millions of dollars to them. And we say enough is enough. This institution's not moving with the majority of their constituency. And it's shameful, because if they poll their constituents, if you ask them, do they want another dime? Do they want us to continue to support the war crimes being committed in Gaza? They would tell you hell no. Because they've seen the images we all have seen of babies being starved to bone. Every day that our government continues to withhold funding from UNRWA, they are actively participating in these crimes against humanity. Every day that our government continues to again fund this genocide, they're enabling more death and destruction. We must continue to push for a complete arms embargo of all weapons to the Israeli government. 7 out of 10 Democrats support an arms embargo. So again, no matter what weapons I don't care if it's offensive or defensive, whatever you call it, let's stop enabling, again, the genocide. The excuses I've heard will never justify these war crimes. It's past time that my colleagues stop making excuses and listen to the majority of Americans.
Rashida Tlaib said it. She said it all.
Yeah, I mean, the only member of Congress who just happens to be Palestinian that has stood for something on this issue consistently. I mean, it is a genocide, and the majority of people don't want it. And as we, said in the beginning of the stream, even MAGA people don't want this. They are turning to. I mean, it is a human, I don't know. I would like to say that it is just a universal human desire to stop suffering when you see it. But I think we've been so distorted and twisted by politics that it's hard to even identify at this point, you know, for some people when suffering is even happening.
And when our federal dollars from the United States, federal ammunitions, federal black ops groups now that are embedded in Gaza through this supposed humanitarian Gaza Aid Foundation or Gaza Humanitarian Aid Foundation that are literally shooting people, killing people, trying to get food for their families to survive.
Yeah. I mean,
we're not just watching this. Our country is enabling it if you're in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. Directly a part of it. Directly a part of it. We have boots on the ground there. And again, like we'll make the distinction between private contractors and U.S. military. We obviously don't have military, but we have private contractors from the U.S. on the ground there, shooting at people as they are trying to get food for their families. And again, like our sources in Gaza, I've been talking to them and they will, you know, be out of contact for hours and hours and say, hey, I'm going to find food. If I don't, this morning, I got 2 messages from people, 2 brothers saying, we are going to find food. They were going to the Zakim crossing to the aid trucks to see if they could get anything. And they both said, you know, if we don't come back, tell our story. And I just thought, like, being charged with that is heavy. It's heavy. And hearing, you know, the text messages that I get that are just so casual, like, you know, pray for our safe return. We're going to, you know, whichever site they're going to. And then they come back. And the other night, the older of the 2 brothers that I'm referring to said that, you know, he didn't get any food. He got shot at, so he left. And he saw a lot of people who had been killed along the way. And he didn't go home because he didn't want to go home empty-handed. He is living in a house with 20 of his family members. So, you know, his brother included in that. There's 20 of them in one house, and they're living in the side of the house that has not been bombed out. And
the whistleblower Anthony Aguilar, who came forward to NPR, released a video of these former U.S. soldiers who are working for the humanitarian or the Gaza Humanitarian Aid Foundation, that is a Trump wing, a Trump asset that is staffed by UG Solutions, among others. And UG Solutions is a black ops contracting firm. He showed a video of the soldiers shooting into the air. He released a video that he took on the ground because he resigned, of soldiers, former soldiers, they're dressed as military, shooting into the air at individuals. And one of them said, "Woohoo, did you get one? Woohoo, we got one." And he said that one of the reasons that they're shooting at people is to get the lines to move faster so that when they're done, people will leave. But cheering on, "Did you get one?" is just, and that's what's happening. And those are Americans on the ground. And not to mention, I mean, there are already Americans on the ground because there's a percentage of the IDF who are have dual citizenship as well. So,
yeah. So, you know, to kind of wrap all of this up, I will say again what we were talking about earlier. If you don't think that this is a U.S. domestic issue, you are wrong. It is. We are directly involved. We are directly involved with this. Many more people are going to die. We are involved, and it is our responsibility to hold our government accountable for what's happening there. And it's not enough. Whatever the Democrats are doing right now, their virtue signaling is just that. It is not enough, and people are going to die. More people than have already died. And we all have a responsibility to ensure that we keep as many people safe as we can.
Absolutely. And I don't know if we have any super chats, or do we have any super chats, Colin?
We do indeed. So the first super chat is from JG1982. It's approaching 500,000 missing. So where are they? I mean, yeah, that is quite the question. I don't know where they could possibly be, hiding 500,000 people. Denise Columbia says, checking to see if I got my bank card problem fixed. I love Status Coup News. We will check on that for you. We will talk to you, Denise. We'll make sure that the issue you're having is fixed.
And thanks for joining us today, Denise, again, as usual. It's good to see you.
Yes, always here.
That's all of it.
That's it.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, and if you guys want to support, I know that Ashley is trying to get back to Alligator Alcatraz. We're also trying to get on the ground in Memphis, Tennessee, to cover what is happening with Elon Musk's new data center for Grok that is polluting that area. Please, if you can, donate to Status Coup at, is it statuscoup.info.com?
StatusCoup.com/join, and we actually have tonight.
I messed that all up. My brain was not braining. Thank you.
You're good.
I apologize. I have the wrong graphic here. I forgot to switch. It's today at 8:30 EST, not 7:30. So tonight at 8:30 EST is the members call. So if you're a member through the website or Substack, just check your email at about an hour before that. And if you're a member on YouTube or Patreon, just check the member feed and it'll be posted on there as well. And we'll see you guys then.
Yeah. Thank you, Colin. And thank you, Zaina. Thank you for joining me. We ran very over. We had a lot of stuff to get to. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed everything, and we will see you soon. Bye, guys.